Welcome to painting class. I am Sharron Ott, and today we're going to draw these. Well, let me start again. Today we're going to paint these ducklings. I've already drawn them twice. I like to draw things more than once so that I really know them very well before I jump into the paint. That way, when I do the paint, I'm going to be able to relax and just focus on the colors and the application of the paint. So I'm going to work on a piece of paper. It's Bristol board. You can work on a canvas or paper, whichever you choose. And we're going to do a certain type of underpainting today where we're going to paint the whole background in first. So the drawing I have is the same size as the ground that I'm going to use for the painting, so that makes it very easy. I'm going to look at where the horizon line is, and it's right about here. The horizon line is that line that divides the sky from the land. And I'm going to get out my paints. Today I'm going to be using acrylic paints. I prefer the golden. I find they have a better consistency. They're richer and creamier. And they also have much better colors. I have a selection of brushes, 1 inch, 3/4 inch, 1/4 inch, a pointed brush, and a detail brush. I'm also going to start my picture with a very nice large brush. This is what I'm going to use to lay in the background. And this is about a 1.5 inch rounded top brush. You'll also need a squirt bottle, a water container, some sort of a rag. Rags work better, paper towels just disintegrate, and a palette, of course. And I like to use these plastic containers. I'm going to use a palette that I've already started. Give it a squirt. That thin layer of water keeps the paint from drying out. And they'll keep for literally weeks if you squirt them while you're working with them. Okay, so I want it to look like a sort of cloudy gray day, but you could use any color for your sky that you want. So I'm going to go with like a dark blue gray, fade to a lighter gray, and then I want the greens on the bottom to be like an olivey muted green and fade from darker and brighter to more muted. Colors always become more muted as they move towards the horizon line because they are farther away from us. So I'm going to take some blue, some black, and I have some white. I'm going to squirt out a lot more white. Sometimes for the white, I'll extend my paint with some of the less expensive paints. This comes from Walmart and it's called De La Roni, and I find it's rather nice. So I will mix this with my golden paints. So I want different values. I want a darker gray blue. I want a light gray blue. And I also want like a bright blue, all different colors. And I think I might even have like a purplish blue. And I'm just going to start putting these in. I want it very brush strokey. We use the term painterly. I want to have it very painterly. So I'm thinking, what am I actually painting? I'm painting clouds. Clouds have shape. They have volume. So I'm going to give brush strokes that sort of show the shapes of the clouds. Your brush strokes should show the form. The brush strokes have a voice of their own. There are many elements to a painting, and brush strokes are one of them. And they speak in their own way. So we want to have them. I'm trying to think about clouds without actually painting in each cloud. And I'm going to have it get lighter as it goes down. Thinking about some billowing sort of clouds. Maybe some brighter spots on the clouds and some lighter spots. Have that fade down, so I'm creating sort of a cloudy day. It's going to give the painting a certain mood. The colors that you pick will determine the mood of the painting. That's if this was I could have painted this in peach and pink. And that would have been a beautiful, bright, pretty sunrise. And that would be nice also. Whatever colors you want to use on your background, it's fine. Today we're painting these little ducklings, and it's just a little tchotchke, a little decorative item I had around the house. But they're very nice for painting, these sort of things. So look around your house and see what you have that you might be able to paint. I'm going to put some purples in here. And let these purples walk down into the whites. Thinking about the clouds, thinking about the shapes. The brush strokes are telling the story of what's going on. And I'm introducing a little bit of an orange down here at the horizon just to mute that purplish blue, because we know that blue and orange are complementary colors. So as colors go away from us, they are muted with their complement. And that's actually how the human eye sees things. So as the sky goes away from us, a little bit of orange is introduced into the color. So I introduced that little bit of orange in there. All right, so that's a nice sky. And now I'm going to work on this water on the bottom. I want it to be like a greenish blue. So I'm going to squirt out. I have a green, and I'm going to use that. But if you'd like to mix your own green, actually that's white. If you want to mix your own green, this is called permanent green light, you can do so. Just use blue and yellow and go back and forth till you get that nice green. Different blues and different yellows are going to give you different greens. Okay, so I don't want to use the straight green out of the tube. I want a soft green, more almost like an olive or a sage. So I know the complement of green is red. And I know that in sunlight, the human eye perceives colors to be muted by mixing with their complement. So when we use the complements to mix our colors, it's very believable to the human eye. So I'm mixing this green with this red. I'm getting a brown. And then I'm going to take some of that and mix it in with this green. So I'm getting a sort of a muted green up here, and I'm going to mix that with white. Still a little bright, so I'll pull some more of that brown that I mixed. And now I might like to add a little yellow to that. I think I could use a spot of yellow, a bit of yellow, and play with your colors. Go back and forth, mix a few different variations. Every time you mix a color, like I want to keep that, and I'm going to mix another color over here. There'll be another variation on the green. And then I'll mix another one over here. That will be a lighter version of that. So we have all different shades, all different greens. Play with the colors. I'm going to start laying these on. I'm going to put it on rather thin because I want it to dry. I'm going to put the nice dark greens in the front, using some of these browns and some greens that I mixed. And I want it to look like water. So I'm thinking to make the brush strokes horizontal, as if it's the surface of the water. So it's going to have a different look than the sky. And now I'm going to start introducing the lighter values of green as it walks further away from the viewer. Introduce little bits of red into the green. It's always good to work with your complementary colors. The human eye perceives the complements together. It's how things are muted, and it's also how things are brightened. So play with those complements. I'm putting that red right in there. I'm getting lighter as it goes towards the horizon because it's a nice, bright, sunny day. So I'm fading into the sunlight. And I've also introduced those reds back in the distance. So that becomes more and more muted as it goes away. By mixing the red with the green, we get that wonderful soft color. And the furthest away will be our lightest value. Value is what we call the scale of light to dark. And I like it so you almost can't see where the sky and the water meet. So the way I'm going to do that, I'll do that in a minute actually. I want to play a little bit more with this water, put some highlights and some darks down in this water. I'm going to take some of these greens and I'm going to put them up into the clouds so that the colors tie together. I have this very, very light muted green that's got the red added to it. Add a little bit more green to that. And I'm going to put a little of that up into the clouds because we want our picture to integrate. We want one part to move easily into the other part. Okay, and I'm going to put the white right on top of that. It's a little dark, so I'm just going to add the white right in there. Some of the green and some of the white. I want this horizon light to be a little bit ambiguous, so we don't really know where the sky begins and where the water ends. Sometimes on a misty day, it'll be like that. And you just see a sort of a smooth blend from one area into the other. We want to keep the horizon as the lightest point. So I'll often just get the white and lightly scrumble it over the horizon. And then bring that up and bring that down. So that's our lightest spot. Still thinking these are clouds. These are the clouds. Oop, this is the water. The sunlight, it's a grayish day. So the water has a certain sort of dark grayish cast. And we're making the dark spots with that red mixed with the green. Okay, so that's a very dark, murky background, but it's going to make those very light little chicks pop out nicely. So I'm going to squirt my palette. And I'm going to go on top of this background with chalk, and I'm going to draw in. Now, there's many different ways to create an underpainting, but it's important to always have an underpainting. It's a foundation. You wouldn't want to do a piece of artwork where you just fill in one piece and then the other. It appears very flat when you do that, especially with these acrylic paints that are not very opaque. They don't have a lot of substance. So the layering works really well with these acrylic paints. So we have done underpaintings in class that are a full value scale done in brown tones. And then you put the glazes on top. That's the Renaissance style. Last week we did a very simple underpainting where we just painted the whole canvas orange and let bits of that show through. And that gives emulates sunlight. It gives a sunny look. So today's underpainting is one that works really well when you're going out landscape painting, when you go out live or plein air, as we say, painting, and you just can block in the whole background very easily and quickly first. And then on top of that, you can build up trees or flowers or what have you. So I'm going to draw on top of here with chalk, orange chalk. I'm going to find the basic forms of my little chickies. So I have this little guy's head and his neck. Then I have his body. Now I've drawn him before. Because of that, I can do this pretty easily. If I hadn't drawn him before, I would be probably making more mistakes. But this way, it's pretty much lodged in my memory what all the little shapes are like. And I can just look at the picture and also look at the model and just block it in with this chalk. Hope you guys can see that. I'll put this little guy in. And his body is right about here. And we always find the neck is a counterbalance to the body, so it's on an opposite angle. The paint is still a little bit wet, that's okay. I'm going to be able to find it in there. Although I don't think y'all can see. And then I'll put his little tail. And then in the front, we're going to have, he's got feet. Going to have a couple lily pads up in the front. And then over here, there are some reeds in the water. Okay, let's begin painting. I know these little duckies are yellow, a nice, pretty, soft yellow. So we always have to go, what is the complement? The complement of yellow is purple. And here I have this Daler-Rowney purple, which is a nice color, nice quality paint for the price that you get. These are $2 a tube, these at Walmart. And they are my favorite of the student grade paints. The colors are pretty nice. So because our little ducks are yellow, we will shade them with purple. That would be the way that our eye would see it in sunlight. We would actually see the shadows made of purple. I'm going to mix a little yellow with the purple. So let me put out some more yellow. So it's going to turn yellow, and purple will make brown. Any two complements make brown. So I'm going to take some of this purple and I'm going to mix it with this yellow. That's going to be the color I'm going to shade with. And I also might use some straight purple, but I'm using this. It's a really nice goldish brown that you get. I'm mixing yellow and purple. And I'm going to look for all of the dark parts first on these little duckies. So I know the light is coming from one side. So I'm putting these shading on the way away from the light. On the other side, but I'm careful to leave this reflected light. Can you see that on this ducky? See this light along this edge? It's very important to look for that in the pictures. That's the reflected light. It's the light that's coming like this. It's hitting the table and it's bouncing back up and hitting the dark side of the object. But that creates a line, and that helps us distinguish our object from the background behind it. So always remember that reflected light. It's an important part of your piece of art. So I'm putting in all the dark parts of the little ducks first. And again, I'm using a sort of a loose brush stroke. And I'm doing some purple and some of that brownish purple that we mixed. And I'm looking at my sketch because it's a nice value sketch. I've already problem solved all of the dark and the light. So now I can just move over here and follow it systematically. Takes that stress out of getting into the paint and making mistakes and wiping it off or painting over it. So I've laid in the darks, and now I want to put in the yellow. So there's both yellow and then a very light pale yellow. I'll move over to this palette. I'll put the yellow. And then I want to make a really pale yellow. So I'll mix some white. I'll mix some white. So we have that soft, soft, soft pale yellow. And there is even some straight white on those little duckies. So a nice soft pale yellow. And I think I'll just put the dot of purple. Just a tiny amount of purple in there just to soften that yellow. Take the garishness out of it, make it a more natural color. To do that, we just put dots, the tiniest amounts of purple. And we get those very soft, soft pale yellows. Okay, so I'm going to start laying in these yellows, thinking about the feathers. How do the feathers move? Let's try to make the paintbrush move like the feathers would move. Clean in all the different areas. There's some dark yellow and there's some pale yellow. And I'm running it right into the shadow colors. Using my 1/4" brush. And remembering this reflected light over here, I'm going to make sure I put that bright edge over here. And you actually can see it. It's something maybe you wouldn't have noticed if I hadn't mentioned it, but it's very important. So remember to put in your reflected light. Now I have some of that orange chalk and it's blending right in, and I like that. That's a nice thing. I like when the chalk blends in. And it's also okay to let some of that background show through. Some of that nice greenish background. That's fine if that comes through. That's why we always start with an underpainting, because that gives all sorts of nuance and richness when you're painting one color on top of the other. It's very different if you're painting just on a white canvas. Then you're always sort of at the beginning trying to battle with covering up the white. I find it works fine for pictures that are predominantly white. The white backgrounds work well. But when we're working with other colors, it's nice to have some kind of an underpainting. Some nice thick colors, working wet on wet, looking at the different feathers, the different patterns of the feathers on the bird. Put this reflected light down here. And you see that reflected light lets us see this outer edge of the bird. So it serves a really important purpose when we're painting. Or else we might not see that edge if we didn't put that in. A little bit of it under here. A little bit of it over there. So reflected light can really be an important part of your picture. The beaks are orange. So I'm going to get this palette out again. I'm going to squirt this one because I don't want to lose those yellows. They're very nice. I want to use those on the next bird. So I need to squirt that, or else when I go back in a couple minutes, that will be all dried out. I'll squirt this one again. So it's a pretty continuous thing, this squirting. And that's just part of what acrylic paints are about. So I want to make orange for the beak. So I have this cadmium light. I'm going to mix that with yellow and make a really nice orange. Now I don't want that bright, bright orange though. I want a softer orange. So I think, what is the complement of orange? Who knows? Blue. Who says blue? So I'm just going to take a dot of blue. Hi, Becky. Hi, Remy. I'm going to put a dot of blue and mix it with that orange just to soften it a little bit. Add a little white. And I'm going to paint in the duck's bill with that orange. In nature, usually the colors are softened with the complement. Although with flowers and with some birds, we see really, really bright colors. Or in the fall, so there are times where we want the straight colors. For painting a sunset, all those times we want the bright colors. But in things like this where we're trying to find the soft, delicate tones on his little beak, then we want to mute the colors a little bit. His feet are also orange. There we go. Okay, he's starting to have take shape. A lot of pretty colors in the little chickie. Oh, wait, it's a duckling. I'll put the eyes in later. I want to let this layer dry. This isn't the finished layer yet, but I want to let this dry a little bit. And I'm going to move on to the other duckling, I think. And in a second here, I'm going to add a little bit of yellow into the orange. See how nice when you put the yellow right into the orange, then you get another color. You get the yellow-orange together, having them blend together while it's still wet on the canvas. And that's called impasto. It's a very nice look. That's a old master style. All right, I am going to move on to the next duckling. I'm going to do the same process. I'm going to start with the darker color. Now this isn't finished yet. This is just blocking in the colors. I'm still going to go back and do details. This is an expressionistic way to paint. But then you can get as much detail work as you would like on top of this. And you can take this into full realism. This is just getting us started. So I have the dark part, that brown that I made over here, and he's got a little wing underneath here. Finding all the darks, looking at this sketch. This is the side away from the sunlight, so this side is going to be the darker side. It's logical. I want this to be darker behind that little guy. And can work on the front one a little bit too. It's good to keep thinking of each part of the picture. And I wanted this duckling to be a little bit of a darker value behind the other duckling, so you can see one from the other. So I'll do that. And have this tail show back here and have that be sort of in shadow. Sunken shadow, so it looks like it's in the back. We have this other little wing sticking up over here. A cute little wing. We want to make sure we can tell which duckling is which. Let's see, one from the other. That's a bit of a challenge for us here. How to make sure that we don't lose one into the other. And the beak. Okay, now I'm going to take the lighter color again. All the soft yellows that we made by mixing a little bit of purple with the yellow. Just like this brown that we made, that's a mixture of yellow and purple, complementary colors. So we always want to think of working with the complements. I see this front of the duckling is very light, almost a straight white. There's a little hint of color in it. And then he has a little wing sticking up here. A little wing sticking up over there. Pull this down and then it'll fade into the shading. So we're going to fade right into the brown shading. Just have it move right into it. So we have our yellows fading right into the browns, and we're just going to forget about the eye right now. We're going to get the eye a little bit later. And the front of the duck is very light up the front of its neck. He has a nice big proud chest, puffing out his little chest. And there will be a reflected light on him also. So this side will have that little bit of brightness. Can we see it? If you look closely, you can see that there's an edge of brightness. See it? That's what we as artists, we learn to see things. It's often said that artists are, the process of learning to be an artist is a process of learning to see. So it is about observing details much more closely than the average person. And then it's also about being able to take that your eye sees and have that come out through your hand, be able to actually then draw that and then paint that. I always recommend drawing first before you paint, unless it's just if it's an abstract. Sometimes folks will just go right into the paint and kind of let things happen. For realistic art, it's easier to draw it first. I'm going to do the beak on this duckling with the orange. I want to reinforce the orange on this little one a little bit. Put a little orange on the tip of his wings. That one has orange on the tip of its wings. And I'm starting to see the feathers, the little ducklings. They're making them more colorful than they are, but that's fine. We can do that with our art. We can make things nice and colorful. This not quite so dark right there. Fading into the dark, have the colors blend together. Walk the colors around. Now I have a little problem here with the back of this fellow's head. is the same color as the sky. So I don't see his head, and I'd like to see his head. So I think I'll put some yellow. I'll just go with a nice bright yellow, and I think I'll make the back of his head a strong yellow, and then we'll be able to see him. There, then we can see him much better. All right, I'm going to move into a more detailed brush. This has a nice point on it. And I want to put in the eyes. I'm going to use, I suppose I shouldn't, but I'm going to use some black, and I'm going to mix that with the purple. And mix it with a little of our yellow, so we get some of those same tones in the birds. And the eye is basically a circle. Now this little guy, his head is turned away from us a little bit, so the circle is towards the front of his head. So I'm going to put the dark in the circle. And then I'm going to put a little point on each side of that. Now this is a detail that you can go back in and refine more. I'm going to put this darker edge on the beak. Not liking that paintbrush. Darker edge on the beak. All right, and now I'm going to do the eye on this little fella. And it's about right in the middle, but maybe up a little. I think I'll put it right there. Now the paint is still a little wet, but it's okay if we pick up some of the other colors. We want that to happen. We want all the colors to integrate. That's how it is in natural sunlight. I think his head and his neck look a little disconnected there. So I'm going to see if I can just run my damp brush over this and blend together those colors a little bit before it dries. That's helping. Also, I think he has a bit of a shadow underneath his chin. So I think this might be darker under here. And perhaps a little bit whiter under here. And a little bit of a shadow. And then I think I'll go with some yellow and smooth out this area. So his head looks like it's connected to his body. We're having a little disjointed issue there. Okay, and in the front, now let's do a little bit of the dark on the beak. Get the edge on the beak and the bottom of the beak. Now again, feel free to work into very intricate details if that is your style, if that's what you enjoy doing. This would be a starting point. Some people enjoy realism, and so this would be a place to begin, and then you can just continue to work it into more and more realism. Some people enjoy leaving it at this point where it's still very brushstrokey and some things are suggested rather than painted in. I'm going to put some highlights. So whatever is your style, that will be what you should go with. We can all start in that same way. When the expressionistic artists and the impressionists had first begun, one of the criticisms they received is that people said it looked like they had only done the underpainting and forgot to finish the painting. And so in some ways, this could be looked at as the rough underpainting. But some people will just leave it at this point and leave the brush strokes, which I find very nice. I think I might put a little orange on the back of the bird here because I'm having trouble seeing that. So the orange will allow me to see the back of the bird. So use the colors that work for your picture. Not necessarily so much to copy. We'll use our reference material and we study it, but then we manipulate the lights and the darks and the different colors to create the best composition that we can. And so sometimes we'll have to add a little highlight here or add a little color here as we think is best for the picture. I'm also going to add a little highlight in each eye. And then I'm going to move over here into the lily pads. And these are, I want to make them a green, a little bit of a brighter green than the water that I have put in there. I'll take this 3/4 inch brush, dampen it. I might have to put a little bit more green in my palette. Take the time to mix your colors, get the colors right. There's a little bit of chalk on the picture. If you have some chalk left, just wait for the paint to dry, and then that chalk will wash off with a damp cloth. Okay, I'm going to take some green, mix it with a little bit of a red, soften it, mix with a little bit of a yellow, and I'm going to work into the lily pads with that brighter green color. And some of the darker green too. And these are a nice shape, very organic shape, makes a nice little detail over on this side of the picture. So we're creating a visual balance where we have our main objects on one side, and then we have details that are subtle on the other side, and they create a visual balance. And do some colors in, play with the colors a little bit. Nice and bright. Bring in some of these greens back here. Get some of the nice soft greens too. I'm putting like the grasses and the cattails or different flowers that grow along the edge. Always put a little red in your green. Always put a little complement in the colors. Okay, now I want to do some shading on this lily pad. I'm going to take the pointed brush, like this brush. Make sure that it's at a nice point. Always take time to shape your brushes. And I'm going to grab one of my nice browns This one I'm going to get by mixing the red with the green, make a nice brown, and I'm going to add some purple to it. Oh, so it's a nice dark color. And then I'm going to use that for these shadows along the bottom of this lily pad in the water. And I'm also going to use it for the lines on the lily pad. So it has these veins that show through. Alrighty. Some purple down on this shadow. Nice dark purples on these shadows. And I'll put some purple in these shadows too. And then I want to put a shadow on the water that is being cast by the bird. I'm going to use the purple and take the purple, mix it with a little bit of that brownish green. And I'm going to lay in a shadow underneath the bird that's falling on the water. And some of it's falling on the lily pad. Some of it's falling in the water. I'm still using the brush stroke, thinking, okay, this is water. What does the water look like? What are the currents in the water looking like here? So I'm using brush strokes to think about that. Let your brush strokes speak. And a little bit of a shading. Now again, this can be worked up into all sorts of detail from this point on, or it can be left very loose like this. But that's one way that you can do quick outdoor painting, landscape painting, painting the entire background first. It's a very nice plein air technique. And then on top of that, start building the objects. Putting highlights on these lily pads with some yellow. So I see the sun is hitting those lily pads on the same side that it's hitting the duckies, the ducklings. And over here, the sun's hitting this lily pad. Like so. All right, that is the lesson for today. And I hope that you have enjoyed it. And please look around your house for little figurines that you might be able to draw and put into your own background. Thank you very much for joining. I hope you have a nice week and take care. Thank you.